Before I preach, we do have a presentation to make this morning. If you've noticed, if you've ventured there and you walk out the door and you head right, I'm sure if you've used the ladies' bathroom, you have walked by it. Guys, maybe you're a bit more oblivious to it because you go the other way. But there's a wall, and it tells you who all the volunteers in all the different ministries and the different areas of our church and where they're serving. And there's also some verbiage beside it. There's little S's with circles, there's check marks and other things that identify certain benchmarks that these people have achieved in order to be qualified to do what they do. Because we want people to be qualified to do the things that we're asking them to do. Traditionally, people in the church get asked to go and help in the nursery one Sunday, and 28 years later, they are finally able to give that job up. So we want you to know that we're not just trying to throw people in certain areas. We want them to be empowered to do what they do. And we have different avenues to be able to do that here at the Bridge and in the Church of the Nazarene as a whole. One of the things that we are doing is that anybody that works, two of the things that we're doing, I guess, anybody that works with children has to accomplish two things to be able to be qualified to do that. One of those is a background check. And that we feel that that's very important, that we don't have people who maybe we have some questions for to be working with our children. The other one is that we have this training made available to us through a company called Ministry Safe, called NazSafe. It's the Ministry Safe software, but it's given specifically to the Nazarene Church under the name NazSafe, and it is sexual abuse awareness training. Yes, I know, you start squirming in your seat when you hear things like that, but it is a preventative training for people to be mindful and watchful and careful, not only to protect our children, but to protect themselves and to protect the church. And so these are things that we're asking all of the people in the church volunteering to work with children to do. And we're well on our way to accomplishing having everyone complete that training. There's also another training that's available to people, and it's through the Nazarene Church, and it's on a place called the discipleship.org. Discipleshipplace.org. It is a Nazarene site, and it is full of lots of different training materials for lots of different people in lots of different areas. Small groups, Sunday schools, children's ministries, adult ministries, any type of ministry at all. There's some sort of training available. So we don't want to just say, here, you do this, figure it out, we'll see you later. We want to say, hey, we would like you to do this. If you need help in understanding how to do this, we'll help you. And here's another resource that you have available to you to help you do what you're being called to do, what you're being asked to do. We don't just want to throw people at problems. We want to create an environment where people are able to thrive in the ministries that they're called to do. This morning we have a couple of presentations. Beyond the background check and the NazSafe training, these people have completed the recommended coursework that's been given specific to their volunteer area. And so we want to recognize them for that. And so this morning I would ask that Phil and Brenda Fries come forward to receive their certificates of completion for the coursework that they've been requested to complete on the discipleshipplace.org website. And Brenda's back there serving still, so she's there they come. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Brenda. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you. They didn't even take it online. They had it printed out for them, given to them. They take the test, they turn it back in. Michael is somebody that's wonderful to work with in these types of things, and so if there shouldn't be any limitations for us being able to accomplish these things. And if maybe you have a thought in your mind that says, hey, I'd like to do this, but I just don't know how, well, let's respond to the call, and then maybe we can help you with the how, or the what, or the why. And so if there's something that you feel God is calling you to do, you're just not certain about it, we can talk that out, and we can find ways to get you empowered to do what God is calling you to do. So take some time, look at the wall, and we'll begin to appreciate the effort that people are making to make sure that we're able to conduct the ministries of the church. Now, that being said, we have a few minutes left, so we can, we appreciate Phil and Brenda, and if you go and look at that wall, and you look at all the different ministry areas, you'll notice a pattern and a trend that says Phil and Brenda, 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 and so we appreciate that. But you know what? We need some folks to step up and come behind them and say, hey, we know what Phil and Brenda do. Let's learn what they do so that we're ready to take over and maybe give them a break from time to time. I am very excited this morning about lighting the Advent candle. Despite my Scrooginess that comes across sometimes, I really like Christmas, don't get me wrong. But I believe this morning we may be the only church in the world who had an Olympian light our torch. I don't know. We're going to claim it. Somebody can dispute it if they want, but that just struck me as funny. So thank you, Fam and Karen and Little Fam, for coming and doing that this morning for us. When I go in and the baby's crying and it's time to get her up, sometimes I'm in a hurry and not thinking. Imagine that. And so I walk in the room and open the door, and the first thing I do is flip on the light. And the baby's standing in the crib, she's looking around, and I flip on the light, and what does she do? She tucks her head down, falls back down in the crib, like, why did you turn that light on? Have you ever been in a strange place where maybe you're sleeping somewhere you're not used to sleeping, and you wake up in the middle of the night, and you're like, where am I? Because it's dark and you can't look around, and you're like, you've been in a deep sleep, and you just are having a little bit of trouble trying to identify where did I fall asleep. And sometimes it happens. I guess it happens more as I'm getting older. But in trying to remember, what you got to do. Anytime you're in the dark and all of a sudden there's a sudden light and it comes on, it hurts for a moment, and you're like, I'm not ready for that. And it's startling, it's disorienting, and it takes you a moment, some longer than others, but it takes a moment of adjustment to shake it off and realize, okay, now I can see. Now I know what's going on. I'm here and I'm coherent. I understand what's happening now. It's startling, but it can take a moment to adjust to the light when you're in the darkness. It can take a moment to adjust to the light when you're in the darkness. If you would you stand with me this morning as we read from the Word of the Lord? We're going to read from John chapter 1, beginning at verse 1, going down to verse 18. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but he came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become the children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son of God, only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks before me, because he was before me." For from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the only God, who is at the Father's side. He has made him known. This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. There's a couple different descriptors in John chapter 1 for Jesus, and the first one we come across is the Word. He is the Word. What does that mean? Well, when we talk about the Word, we just read the Word. The Word is. We believe that the Word is. It exists. Even if this book were to be closed, thrown out, shredded, and burned, that Word still exists. It's not that it is on the pages of this book before me. It's that it is. And it exists in the fullness that God intended for it to exist, and it exists in truth. The Word is. And Jesus, is described as that Word. It is who He is. He is the Word. The Word exists. It is Him. The Word is also spoken. We just read the Word. It was uttered from my mouth to your ears. It was given unto you, and that is what the Word can be utilized for. It can be given. It can be shared. It can be spread. The Word is, and the Word is so that we can hear the Word, so that we can consume and understand and take on the Word and begin to ourselves embody the Word. It says that He, as the Word, had equality with the Father, that He was from the very beginning, if there is such a thing as a beginning. He's the Alpha and Omega, so He always has been. In the existence of God has also been the existence of Jesus. We believe that. As Christians, we believe that He is part of the Trinity, God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so there is no beginning, no end. They are. When God calls Himself I am, Jesus is as well. He's the I am. It says that He is a creator. It says that He made all things, and without Him there wasn't anything made. Jesus is a creator, and he came to the world in which He was responsible for creating. Then it talks about Him as light. It calls Him the true light. The true light. Who is the light for? Well, verse 9 tells us the true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. The light came for everyone. There's no one left out, that everyone can see the light, can experience the light, can respond to the light. The light came for all of us. All of us meaning everybody in this room and everybody outside of this room, everybody who ever was and everybody who ever will be. Everyone. But I guess the question is, who recognized the light? Verses 10 through 11 continue to tell us that really no one did. He came for everyone, but when he came, no one recognized him, except for John. No one recognized him. He came sort of incognito into a dark world as true light. You know, even his disciples had to be called. The disciples didn't just show up one day and say, hey, we're here, we're ready for work. No, he had to call them out of the boats. He had to call them out of the tax collector's booth, as we talked about Levi last week. He had to call them unto him and say, hey, follow me. And they accepted. They accepted because when they made contact, they could see the light in this man. The light can be disorienting. When you're in the dark and all of a sudden the switch comes on, it takes a while to figure out what is going on. And so Jesus was born into this time and this place where the darkness was heavy. And when the light came, it was very disorienting to everyone around. It was very confusing. It was very difficult. And we see that as we read through the Gospels and as we see how people just didn't understand who this Jesus really was. They didn't understand and they didn't grasp and they didn't see what was right before them because they've spent so much time in the darkness that they didn't recognize the light. That it shattered the darkness, and He came to provide them with an illumination over what they've been missing this whole time. They existed in a darkness, and He, the true light, came. And that first flick of the switch caused great confusion. I think we would be very dishonest with ourselves if we could, after reading what we read and trying to put ourselves in the shoes of, or the sandals, I guess, of the people of this time, and be honest with ourselves and say, well, I would have figured it out. I would have known. It wouldn't have gone by me. I would have figured out who this Jesus was. I think that's a pretty conceited view. If I took that upon myself, say I would have gotten it. I know that I'm a very loyal person. I know that I can be very firm in my beliefs. And me, as a Jew at this time, it would have been hard to persuade me that this Jesus was who He was claiming to be. It would have been very disorienting for me to have all of a sudden, out of the darkness, this light shining. God was so sure that Jesus wouldn't be recognized that He had to make room for John. He had to, and even though, and I've done this to my kids too, where you walk in the room and say, all right, the light's going on. And even though you warn them and tell them, hey, the light's going on, they might duck under the pillow or they might put an arm over their head, and they might do something to prepare themselves for the light, but it still doesn't work, because when the light comes on, they're like, oh! It doesn't matter what kind of warning you get, it's still going to be difficult and disorienting to adjust to be able to focus in the light. And even though nobody was going to understand who Jesus was, God sent John anyway to say, the light's about to come on. I'm going to flip the switch. Here he comes. But nobody understood it. It was still disorienting. It was still confusing. It was still difficult for them to understand what was truly happening at this time. He had to send John. He even told them a long time ago, I'm going to be sending someone to announce when the light is coming. He was prophesied about, and when the time came, they still didn't get it. They just sat in the darkness. And when the light came on, they just got more confused. Jesus spoke about himself as light, and the verse that was read when the Advent candle was lit this morning was John 8:12. And it says, again, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. See, Jesus didn't come and just have John tell us that he was the light. He came and proclaimed it. He said, I am the light of the world. I came into this dark, broken, dirty world to bring light so that people could see, so that people could understand, so that people could look around and maybe after a time of disorientation, it doesn't take long to get your bearings and look around and see the things that you weren't seeing before. Because that's what light does. It illuminates things. It shines so that we can see the things that we only feared in the dark. I remember being smaller. I was always afraid of the dark when I was small. You'd get done in the bathroom and you'd get in the room and you'd hit the switch and then you'd run to the bed and the monsters couldn't get you if you got the covers over your head. You were safe once the covers were over your head. But when it was dark, you just didn't know what was there. You lost sight. You weren't able to see. I, as a father, appreciate light, especially when the boys were younger, because Legos hurt. The other night, I was walking through the living room, and fortunately, I didn't step on top of it. I hit it with my foot, and toy goes whew, shooting across the room because I couldn't see it because it was dark. The darkness is a very confusing, difficult place to be. In the darkness, we do become fearful because we can't see what's right there. We can't see what's right in front of us. We can't see what's all around us. We can't see it, and so we don't perceive it. And so we only sit back in wondering of what could possibly be right here. What could possibly be the danger for me right here in this room? What could possibly be here that's good for me in this room? I wish I could see in this dark place. That's how the world was. And Jesus came and shone His light. He shone His light He was in chapter 8, verse 12. He's talking to the Pharisees, and He's telling the Pharisees, I am the light of the world. He's basically telling them, I'm trying to shine the light so you can see what's all around you. You think you're in the light, but really you're just blindfolded. And you're groping and grasping and think you know, but you don't really know. You've put yourself in darkness and you proclaim, I'm in the light. It's a dangerous place for the Pharisees to be, and so Jesus had to come to shine the light so that people could see what's been all around them the whole time. What's been right before them, what the Word was trying to tell them before He came. Darkness gets in the way. He was speaking to a people choosing to live in the darkness. And I've known people like that. You've walked into houses before when it's just really dark. I mean, you can still see. There's a little bit of light, but it's really dark. Oh, don't turn that light on. I don't like the light. So we choose to live in this darkness. They were choosing to live in this darkness, blinding themselves, keeping themselves from seeing what was actually there to be seen. Jesus came to say, no more. Because you're pulling all these other people into your darkness. They need to be able to see. So He came, and He came as the true light. He came as the Word. He came as something that had never been seen before. And He brought an illumination. He brought a light into a dark world, and he preached light, and He preached with authority, and He preached with a love and a grace that had not been seen before. He told them who He was. And people did start to follow. People did start to see. Because He lived a life of light. And His light shone brightly in the darkness, especially when He confronted those who were trying to keep everyone else in the darkness. His light shone brightly, and so when His light was shining brightly, people were attracted to this light. People liked not being in the darkness anymore. People liked being able to see once more. And see this that God had laid out for us. So what happened to those who received Him? Verses 12 and 13 tell us a lot. But to all who did receive Him, who believed in His name, He gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. You have to take verse 12 and 13 together, because if you look at it grammatically, it's one sentence. Don't separate them. Take them together and understand that what he's trying to talk about here. And there's 4 words in here that really stood out to me. 4 words here that really stood out to me, and I hope they stand out to you as well. Excuse me. In verse 12, it says, He gave the right. It didn't say, but to all who did receive Him, who believed in His name, He made the children of God. He gave the right. That means that it's not automatic. That means that there are people who see and experience this light of Jesus Christ, as He has shattered the darkness, illuminated the world, and given us opportunity to look around us and really see what it means to be His. And then when we see it and we know what it means to be His, then we have the right to become His. Knowing who Jesus is does not save you. Knowing who Jesus is and committing your life to Him saves you. You have the right to be saved. You have the right. Everyone has the right to see this Jesus and to see in the light in which He shines in this dark world. He has given you the right. Have we accepted it? Have we taken that and said, yes, Jesus, I want to accept what you have to offer? I oftentimes say the church is one of the most dangerous places in the world to grow up, because I think there's a lot of church people who grow up and know the light, and have all the Sunday school answers for the light, and see the light, and they understand what it means to be in the light. They understand the difference between dark and light, and they've seen the difference, and they've experienced the difference. But they don't realize that that illumination comes so that they can choose to serve Jesus. The illumination alone does not save you. The choice to follow Him, to be His, and to give your life unto Him is what saves you. We can't take that grace that He offers and extends to us for granted. The theologian Tertullian said, persons are not born Christians, but made such. Made such when they accept the right to become children of God. He brought light into this world so that He could adopt us as sons and daughters into His kingdom, so that we would accept the adoption that He's offering to us to become sons and daughters of God. The job, then, if we accept our right, if we give ourselves into the right to become His children, and when we become His children, our job then as Christians, as followers of Christ, is to make Christ known. How do we make Christ known? We take light into dark places. We do what Jesus did. He came to a dark place with light. And He shone brightly in the darkness so that people could see what was right before them. We too can go into dark places and shine brightly and bring illumination to people that are in dark places that can't see what's just right around them. We, as we become sons and daughters of Christ, have that light. Have that same light that Jesus had. That same light. If you read Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16, it says, this is Jesus talking. This is the same Jesus that in John 8 said, I am the light of the world. This is Jesus talking to us in Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand. And it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So in John 8, He says, I am the light of the world. In Matthew 5, He says, you are the light of the world. You, the sons and daughters of God, are the light of the world. You can shatter the darkness. You can bring light to dark places, dark situations, desperate places. So if we, truly children of God, we should seek out those dark places and let our light shine. If we are His children living under His grace, we have His light and must shine brightly. What happens when you go outside at noon and you shine your flashlight? Does anybody even notice that you're shining a flashlight at noon? Maybe if it hits them just square in the eyes, they might see your light. Well, guess what? Right now it's noon at the bridge. And so if you're in here shining, you're shining brightly at a bright time. But the call that God gives us is to go to the dark places and shine our lights. It's okay to come and be with other light. That's what Sunday's about. That's what Sunday's for. We celebrate the light on Sundays. We celebrate the light at Christmas. You see the lights. Light is a big part of Christmas because He is the light. What happens if you shine your flashlight at midnight? Your light is a little more effective in a dark place. Your light is a little more useful in a dark place. Your light is needed in dark places. It's Christmas. It's a celebration of light. It's a celebration of lights. We drive around and we see the houses that are tastefully done, and then you see the ones that are just gaudy as all get out, and just got the stuff everywhere. And you know what? Celebrate. That's fine. If that's what you want to celebrate, do it. If you want all the lights in the world, great. If you want a few, that's fine. But we're here to celebrate the light of the world. The light of the world who came to this dark and broken world so that He could share His light with us, so that we could go out and do the same thing He did. Shine brightly in the darkness. I'm going to have our worship team come back up. This morning, I want to challenge you. In light of what we've just read, do we take our light for granted? Do we take the light for granted? It's the first Sunday of Advent. It's a time we can prepare ourselves for what this season means, the coming of light into a dark, broken, and dying world. The coming of light so that He could impart to us the light that He is, and that we too can reach dark places for Him and for His glory. Our altars are open this morning. And maybe those 4 words hit you a little bit differently this morning. He gave the right. Have we assumed too much with God? Have we accepted the light that He offers to us? If you have anything you need to pray about this morning, I'd like you to come forward and pray. Stay in your seat and pray. If you call me to you, I'll come pray with you. If you come up here and you want me to pray with you, I'll pray with you. Whatever the case may be. Let's ponder the light this morning. Please stand with me. We'll sing this.